The Unplayable Podcast is proudly presented by Qantas, the official podcast partner and the official airline partner of Cricket Australia. Once again this season, Qantas is proud to be flying Australia's cricketers as they take on the world. Hello and welcome to the Unplayable Podcast. England have won a match in Australia, the first in almost 15 years, Lou, and unfortunately the series isn't still alive, but it was a fantastic day at the MCG for all England fans and England team members. The Barmy Army was going wild, they got the win by 4 wickets, and now we just talk about too little too late.
14 years and 11 months and 14 days, I think it is, 5,468 days they'd gone without winning a test match in Australia. And some club cricketers, would be listening to this and think, well, how does this relate to my cricket? Because that's what you do as a club cricketer, watching test cricket. In this series, we've had two-day red ball games. That's very familiar for club cricketers. Both of them have been reverse outrights. So the team that was behind on the first innings has won on the second innings. Most club cricketers would go, 200, 300, 400 game careers without playing in a reverse outright. And we've had two in Test cricket in an Ashes series in 4 games.
As you say, this was effectively the reverse of Perth, wasn't it? I mean, Australia had a first innings deficit there and won. England had a first innings deficit here and won. They never really looked like they weren't going to get their total. They came out really strong. It was Crawley and Duckett who have been under so much pressure, especially Duckett throughout the week with those videos that surfaced in Noosa, and Crawley, who has been under a bit of pressure himself, given he's had such a long career to date and delivered not quite as much as England fans would have wanted. Those two really set the tone, and eventually they got the win by 4 wickets. But what does this mean for Stokes and for Bazball? Is it alive and well, Lou?
Well, it shows that there's a method that can work on pitches that give a bit. I think we thought before this series, the way Bazball operates, it should do better on Australian pitches that are better for, you have to elevate your risk profile on wickets that seam around. They've been playing on wickets that are suited to their style, and you kind of thought that approach might be one that would be suited, and finally it did kind of work. I mean, it looked like a tired Australian team by kind of the end of it. There was some pretty questionable batting that I'm sure we'll go into, and the bowling attack just didn't. It's hard to criticise a bowling attack that bowled England out for what was it, under 200 in the first innings.
Yep. 110.
10. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to criticise them, but second time around, it just Mitchell Starc has been phenomenal in this series, and he was just good. And he's just been at this level. And England, to their credit, kind of hit Australia with some good batting on a tough surface. I mean, Ben Duckett, he kind of got played into form a little bit. The way Starc bowled to him early, there was a lot of wide stuff, a lot of short stuff, bit of stuff on his pads, and that kind of just got him going because he did look really rusty early. And Crawley, I think, has been pretty good all series once he got over that pair in Perth. The one I think England fans are going to be walking away from the game wondering about is Jacob Bethell. This guy looked phenomenal. Not only has he not played in the first 3 tests of this series, in a run chase that kind of looked tailor-made for him, especially after Duckett and Crawley got off to such a good start. They bloody demoted him down to number 4. So, you just got to be wondering why didn't we see this guy when the series was live?
Yeah, and it's been Ollie Pope's position for a long time, that number 3 role. He was back at the start of this series, and now finally he's been moved on. And Jacob Bethell, although, as you said, he didn't bat at number 3 in that second innings, but his 40 or 46, he looked very composed. He got a good ball in the first innings as England sort of capitulated, but there was composure there. He was only 22. He was only 7 the last time England won a test in Australia. So he's the start of this new brigade for them. And there's also that aspect of their bowling, which is looking like a very fresh attack compared to what we've seen in years past. They're a little bit of a concern about Gus Atkinson as well. Got to be in a bit of doubt for Sydney now. He didn't reappear after injuring his left hamstring mid-delivery today, which was a bit of a weird one.
It was, yeah, and you'd fear for him playing in Sydney, especially with nothing potentially on the line. We know England don't really rate the World Test Championship at all, so they're not going to be playing for that. Winning in Australia, the difference between a 4-1 and a 3-2 scoreline is significant in terms of how people look at this going forward. So there are jobs on the line really. So you'd think that they'd want to put their best foot forward there. But yeah, I'd be surprised for Atkinson if it looked like a hamstring strain, and that's at least 3 or 4 weeks. But a bit of a sour note on what was otherwise a big moment. Like Ben Stokes sat where we are right now just a few moments ago, and he just said what a moment this was for him and Joe Root in particular, two 30-plus guys who have been out here quite a bit. Like they were back here in 2013, 14. The pair of them, I think that was Root's debut series potentially, and maybe Stokes as well. Both showed some glimpses, and they've played a lot of cricket out here and endured a lot of punishment. That shows a lot of mental resilience to come out here. 13, 14, again 17, 18. Just for Root, Stokes missed that series. Then both of them in 21, 22, and had the tough COVID series. There's a lot of demons floating around when you come back to somewhere for a third or a fourth time, and they finally conquered it. So it's good to see that for two of the elder statesmen.
Before we get into the blow-by-blow of the game, the big talking point will be the pitch. Another 2-day test, the second of the series, only the first time that we've had a series with two 2-day tests since the 1900s, so over 130 years since that. Pretty remarkable stuff, and it's going to come into question again. We heard the Fox commentators say that there were little indentations left on the pitch, which made it extra hard to bat on day 2. There was lots of grass left on it, thatchiness it was described as, sponginess Steve Smith described it as when he sat and spoke to us here. So what happens now in this situation, Lou? I mean, obviously the ICC will give it a rating, and Cricket Australia will probably have a say as well. Yeah,
it will be... I'm really interested to hear the MCC's side of the story, and funnily enough, they're putting up Matthew Page and Stuart Fox, the curator and CEO respectively, tomorrow morning here at the MCG. So, fair play for getting on the front foot, because it was really hard to get on the front foot in on that wicket out there. I mean, interesting comments already. I was interested, first of all, to hear from Steve Smith, the guy who's made more than 10,000 test runs. He's basically said that the way to score on this wicket was to bat like Harry Brook in the first innings, which was 41 off 34 balls. It was chaos. It was charging Stark first ball. It was hitting sixes over mid-off. If a guy who knows batting better than any of us says that like the best batter was probably him, and that's how you should go about it. Was it a good wicket? Stokes said that if this, I think the exact quote was, if this game had been played in a different part of the world, we'd be asking different questions. I'm paraphrasing him there, but he did get asked as a follow-up, is the inference there, are you talking about Asian pitches and specifically Indian pitches, right? Like every time Australia or England go to India, there's a sense of these guys are getting stitched up and India are doing something dodgy with a wicket. That plays out on every tour over there, and I think that was put to Stokes, and he didn't disagree with the sentiment. I think he said it was your words, not mine. So he had the opportunity to clarify that, and he virtually all but kind of confirmed that's what he was saying. So that's going to be the big headline out of the pitch stuff. I mean, I don't think it was like dangerous or disgraceful or absolutely diabolical. It was just a really, really hard wicket to bat on against guys bowling good wobble seam balls around the top of the stumps. It was pretty quick the whole way through. There was quite a bit of seam movement, and a lot of the batters just got balls that they that had their names on it. So yeah, do we? I think this is a question our bosses are going to be asking Josh, right? Like we've had two-day tests. It's the one in Perth costs $5 million. Cost Cricket Australia $5 million. I dare say this one will cost CA even more, given this venue is twice the size of Perth Stadium. They would have sold more tickets. Day 3 was sell. We got 92,000 here to add on to 95,000 yesterday. It probably would have got another 90,000 plus crowd tomorrow, day 3. So, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of tickets. It's a lot of corporate beers not drunken. A lot of breakfast not eaten. It's a lot of hot chips not sold. So that has ramifications. And I think ultimately, Todd Greenberg was on radio today and all but said that they need to do something about it because they can't financially kind of keep having tests like that. That's the uncomfortable truth of it.
Yeah, and when you talk about beers not drunk, the Barmy Army do drink more than many other supporter group in the world, and they were on fire at the end of today, especially as England neared that total. The pitch seemed to play in England's favour a bit towards the end of the day as the ball softened. I've got a stat here. There were 17 plays and misses in the first 12 overs of England's innings, and then only 4 in the next 20 overs. So they really got to a stage where it was comfortable. The crowd could sense that something special was going to happen.
And that's a great stat, Josh, around the 17 plays and misses in the first 12 overs, because one of the interesting things Smith said was that the big difference in this final innings was England hit some massive shots into the LED boards.
Yeah.
And that softened, first the blow of bat on ball, softens the ball a little bit and softens the seam, but also the whack into the LED, maybe on the full for that one that Crawley hit off Boland.
That's straight 6, yeah.
And then there was that other one where Duckett ramped in for 6, kind of scooped in for 6. So that takes a big chunk of the ball. That makes it softer, and all of a sudden you're bowling with a softer ball.
Yeah, it's a good point. And when you have I have the stat here on how many balls per wicket. It was only 24 balls for every wicket across the Test, which is the second lowest in all Ashes matches.
Jeez.
So then when the ball stopped doing stuff, obviously it felt like a different game all of a sudden. Let's go back to the start of the day. Australia had a 46-run lead. They were none down. And then they just lost clumps of wickets. They lost 3 for 6 at one stage. Head, Khawaja and Carey fell in quick succession. Then they lost 4 for 13 to finish their innings, including 3 for 2. When things happened, it happened quickly. And Steve Smith was unbeaten at the end, 24 not out of 39 deliveries. Decided not to shield the strike from the tail there, even though it did happen quickly. But looked like he had the chance to, decided not to, and maybe that's come back to bite them in the end.
Yeah, it's undoubtable that if this game was played, let's say 15 years ago, because that's the number we've been banding around, that this Test goes into at least a third day, potentially a fourth, because just the way teams game this situation, they kind of go, they look at it like Smith just did and go, well, Harry Brook made the second highest score in the game. And he batted like an absolute maniac. So we should have all done that. If we all slog 40 off 30 balls, that equals a total that's more than 250. And that's not always going to come off. But I reckon the ball that Cast bowled to Travis Head was a really big one, because it kind of looked like it might be settling into a bit of a normal day's cricket after Boland nicks off early, and you've got Weatherald and Head. The two supposed to be, Weatherald was supposed to open with Head and would have, if not for the weird circumstances. But you kind of got those two going. Weatherald's leaving a lot of balls. He gets one that nips back into him, and he's pretty unlucky to kind of get a ball like that. And then Marnus goes. But then you got Smith and Head batting together, and Head looked as good as anyone. I think he got kind of stitched up a bit by the outfield was quite slow, and all those cuts and pulls that were going 4 and 6 in Adelaide, just they were going for 3s, and they might have been all run 4s as well if he wanted to run them, but he wasn't running them that hard. But yeah, so he kind of gets out to this ball that nips violently off the pitch away from him. Cass hits you off bail, and I reckon the middle order that followed kind of go, well, if Travis, our best batter, if he's going to get a ball with his name on it, we need to get one before it gets us. And there was a bit of carnage that kind of set in after that.
It was. But the England bowlers got it right. Brian Cast has had plenty of criticism throughout the series for his wayward bowling, but he got things right in the end today. His final 2 spells were 2 for 12 and 2 for 11. He finished with 4 for 34, which I think is his best of the series so far. He's taken 19 wickets. His strike rate is right up there as well with the best in the series. So
his strike rate might be one of the best of all times in a series, but he's also gone at before this series was something like 5 and over.
That's right, yeah.
That's kind of England's philosophy, is just get 10 wickets at all costs, I suppose.
That's right. Australia were bowled out for 132, setting England 175 runs to win. As we sort of touched on, they came out all guns blazing. Mitchell Starc probably bowled his most wayward spell of the series, you'd say. A few wide of off, and a few on the pads as well. And Ben Duckett was able to cash in with a few early wickets. And then we saw the pinch hitter, Bryden Carr. So things were happening even when they weren't supposed to be happening. Just one of those Test matches, Lou.
Yeah, and interesting reasoning from Stokes. He actually wanted to send Gus Atkinson out there, and then he remembered that he wouldn't be able to bat until till number 8 or until a certain amount of time had elapsed. The latter was never going to happen given how quickly this game was moving. So Cast gets sent out. I just thought like they obviously made the decision to send in this pinch hitter, probably in anticipation of the Duckett-Crawley partnership again not paying off. Well, it did this time. They made 50 in as many balls, and that were ideal situations for Bethell to kind of come in at. And yeah, we've touched on how well they kind of batted from there. I wanted to go back to Australia's first innings, Josh, because I thought, just kind of going back to when Travis Head gets out, like Khawaja, Carey, Green, I think they all went out in successive overs. It was Khawaja, he's caught at fine leg off tongue, Carey the next over, and then there was a bit of time. Green put in a bit of. I think I'm getting confused with the previous innings when
it all happened pretty quickly. Yeah,
I know it's hard to remember. So Green,
you did have Travis Head there, so they lost 3 for 6.
That's right.
In that period.
Yeah, so
Khawaja
Head,
and
Khawaja, Carey. That's right. Yeah, and Khawaja. So the Khawaja, Carey, Green one, 3 wickets. I'm kind of lumping together because they're all out to, I reckon, short deliveries or balls that certainly weren't hitting the stump. So Tongue surprises Khawaja with the short ball that he hits down fine leg's throat. I don't think he was expecting that. I reckon he was expecting to get challenged, and all of a sudden it's I got to get something under it. Hits it down to fine leg and clever bowling, and then Green and Carey both balls that they just kind of fended at that they didn't really need to, I think. And I think that goes back to your point before. Well, could Australia have found someone to just hang in there with Steve Smith, because it didn't look that troubled. Like, yes, he played and missed, but it was always controlled, right? He was letting the ball seam and miss his outside edge.
Looked like he was in the element today, though, with all the extra big stuff around the movements and glances and gestures to the bowler.
The scarecrow at one point.
The scarecrow. So when he does that, you feel like he's in the zone. But he just wasn't really troubled today, it seemed like. Yeah,
and he just couldn't find someone to hang around with him. And I reckon Carey and Green would be, Carey's given a lot to Australia in this series, so it's hard to hang him for how he's batted. But Green would kind of be thinking, like, I could have, got to 19, he'd faced 29 balls, hit a couple of boundaries, and all of a sudden, like, he's walking at the bowlers, and I think it was a ball before he went out. He kind of tripped over himself against Ben Stokes and got in a funny position. He kind of walks at him again, I think probably trying to negate the wider line Stokes was coming to him at, and just getting outside so he can't be out at LBW. But he kind of threw off his balance, and he's ended up throwing his hands at a ball that he didn't really need to. So I think Australia will probably regret that. They'll regret how they went about it in their first innings, and here we are.
The crazy thing is that Australia could potentially make changes again. They've made, I think, 3 changes for every test, or close to it, this series. England, meanwhile, have been pretty, you'd say their 11 hasn't changed a whole lot. It's just funny how the things can play out despite the scoreline in the series. And also, this test, over in 2 days, bit of a lottery. You'd say the same with Perth. Both of these could have gone either way.
Absolutely.
So as much as we want to dissect and put a binary win-loss on it, there's probably a bit more to look at, isn't there, in terms of how this one will play out leading into Sydney?
Yeah, I think so. Like, you go back to Perth, and that's one on the bat of one player. Apart from that, the 2 teams were incredibly even. If England somehow snag a win there, then it just looks so different going to Brisbane. Yeah, they probably still lose under lights because Australia just play those conditions way better. But yeah, then it's it's 2-2 if they'd won that, because we'd be coming in. Adelaide, I think Australia still win. If you get Pat Cummins and Nathan Lyon back on that wicket, you're not losing too many games. So imagine that. It could have been 2-2 heading into Sydney. That would have that might have made up for any shortfall that CA had lost in the course of 2 two-day tests.
So the 5th test will start at the SCG on January 4th. It was meant to be a 5-day break, Lou. It's now an 8-day break for the players, so pretty good. They'll be happy with that, I think, all things considered. What are we expecting changes-wise, if anything, or is it a bit too early to speculate on that?
No, well, it's early enough that you kind of go, Stark and Boland, who have played every game in this series so far, it's a rarity as a fast bowler to play 5 consecutive tests. They can probably do it now. 8-day break, that goes back to, what do we have, 9, 10-day breaks between the first and second test and the second and third test. So they've essentially got that again. I think the Perth to Adelaide might have ended up, the Perth to Brisbane might have ended up being like 12 days given the 2-day test there. So yeah, you'd back them to get right. And then, Nisa, I thought he bowled pretty well and he batted very well in the first innings. I don't think you look at changing that. It's probably going to be Murphy v Richardson again for that last spot, unless they want to do a Murphy v Nisa and keep Jai. That'll be an interesting one. What Smith said before about how easy, he basically said spin was the easiest thing to face on this wicket, so why would you bowl it? That's a revealing insight. So if you get another green seamer in Sydney, people love talking about, you play two spinners in Sydney and it's a turning haven. Well, teams, I think the India test last year was an absolute rager for seam bowlers, that is, and you'd presume something might similar kind of occur this year. Then the batting perspective, like Green, another tough test. It'd be hard to hang him for that, just given it's a really tough batting wicket. Labuschagne, I think his averages dipped below 25 for the series. And then Weatherald, I guess they're the probably three question marks in the top order. You've got Inglis there; he didn't shoot the lights out when he had the chance, and Webster's kind of the one who made his debut in this equivalent test, this Sydney test last year. Do you look at him over a Green or one of the other top order guys? So they'd be all the questions, I reckon, kind of circling for Australia.
Lots to wrap up. This has been the recap from day 2, the final day of the Melbourne Test match here in the 2025 Ashes series. We'll catch you ahead of the next test with hopefully an update ahead of that final match. And have a great new year. And this has been another edition of the Unplayable Podcast.